Hey, what's up guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. Again, in the description box down below of the video, I'm going to have some information down there if you guys are interested in sideline replay system. We are using GameStrat this year, so I'm going to have some information on GameStrat, and then I'm going to have some information on the Twitter handle on Just Play Sports Solution, which is I am currently using the playbook portion myself, and I'm trying to get further acclimated to getting it to where our players can log in and we can give our players game plan quizzes and different things to see if we can kind of change the learning environment within our program. So if you look in the description box, there'll be information down there that you can check out those two companies. All right, today I'm going to do a video less on X's and O's and schemes and more on some philosophical thoughts and some things that I've gone through the last year or two, just trying to take a look at how we can get our guys to kind of maximize their potential and maybe play a little bit better to their skill set and their potential. And these are things that obviously not everybody's going to do, and they're things that I'm not even fully sold on doing all of them or some of them. They're just some ideas to get some players to kind of free up and play to their abilities and play to their skill set a little bit better. Okay, so first one is giving ends a two-way rush, all right, a two-way pass rush. We are going to play some 3-3 stack stuff this year, and we are going to do it similar to how Villanova used to run their 3-3 stack. So we are dropping 8 primarily on base downs. We are dropping 8, but we are still only using really 7 in coverage, and we're using our Mike linebacker as a lurker, as an add-on fourth rusher or a spy player. And what we found in some of our experiments so far in doing it is it allows both of our ends to be two-way pass rushers. All right. A couple years ago, I had a great opportunity. I was privileged to coach a player by the name of C.C. Jefferson. He's now a senior at the University of Florida, and C.C. was one of the most talented players I've ever been around, and physically coaching, it's the most talented player I've ever coached, and he had an unreal skill set and God-given ability. And we played CC at the weak side 5 technique in our 4-2-5 defense, so he was with the 1 technique all the time. And what we started experimenting with CC was allowing him to rush the passer however he wanted to rush the passer in the manner that he thought he could get to the quarterback, because we wanted to free him up to get to the quarterback, because that's what his skill set was, and he was just so dominant at doing it. So what we did was we allowed him to two-way go on the weak side, and we taught our 1 technique that anytime he was rushing the passer and he saw the same color jersey cross his face, he naturally X'd. So we didn't call a stunt, we didn't call a pass game, we just gave CC to the open B-gap side a two-way go on his pass rush, and we told the 1 technique that if same color jersey crosses your face, you're going to loop and become the contained player. So we repped that and we worked on that. It was something that we felt, why take a pass rusher with the ability that CC had, and why make him a contained pass rusher and get him, to where he's got to outside rush all the time? Give him a way to, to use his skill set two-way go, and if people are scared of his speed and he gets overset, he could redirect and ricochet so quickly that he could get underneath and make a lot of plays, and that was the goal, let the kid make plays. We have a defensive end that we really like this year, and we have another 2 defensive ends that we think can rush the passer. So by playing a 3-3 stack with the Mike as a lurker in the middle, what we can do is we can allow both ends to have two-way goes. And if they lose contain and the quarterback gets out, we can use our Mike as a spy lurker because we're dropping 8 and we can still play our other coverages behind it. So it's not a true drop 8. It's not a traditional drop 8 in coverage because the Mike we really don't count in the coverage. Now he will, if the quarterback is in the pocket, he will sit there and he'll play crossers and he'll try and cut some crossers and he'll try and play screens and draws. But if the quarterback gets out of the pocket, he will become the contained, secondary contained player or the pull-up player, and that allows our defensive ends to two-way go on every drop-back pass rush. So if they feel like they can get to the quarterback with an inside pass rush move, we allow them to do that, because if the quarterback escapes, we'll use the Mike as the secondary contained player. Okay. Another thing that we're doing a little bit this year, and we did a little bit when we had CC, was ends dent. All right, gap schemes thick; they don't spill. So in other words, we don't teach our ends. All right, the current one of the ends that we have now, and when we had CC, we don't teach them to physically spill wrong arm and take themselves out of the play. We don't want vertical seams in the running game, so don't say or think that I'm trying to tell you that we're going to box everything and let the ball go inside. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, by using the term spill and wrong arm, a lot of times when you rep it with your guys, the defensive end kind of takes himself out of the play, and it takes a lot of work to get that kid to thick wrong arm and then pry back up the field and go back through the inside shoulder of that kick-out block so that he doesn't take himself completely out. When you first teach kids the wrong arm and you teach them the technique, a lot of times younger players, when they get the down block, they'll wrong arm and spill, but they'll go so hard underneath that they almost take themselves out of the play, and the other team can almost still keep the ball past the wrong arm, like on power read stuff. The quarterback could actually pull. You're trying to give him a give read, but sometimes that end goes so flat and takes himself so far out of the play, 2 to 3 gaps removed, that that quarterback can pull past that read and still give yourself a little bit of a vertical seam, even though you've wrong-armed the ball. All right, so I know as you get advanced, and good defensive line coaches will get that kid to long arm and then ricochet vertically back up the field to not get 2, 3 gaps removed. But if you watch some teams play and you watch some DNs play, when they wrong arm, they will go almost into the front to backside A gap, and they will wrong arm so hard that they take themselves 2 gaps removed. All right, and sometimes it almost, all right, defeats the purpose of what they're trying to accomplish. Yes, the ball goes outside and they get the ball spilled, but sometimes it doesn't go as far outside and it still ends up going vertically up the field. Maybe not in the A or B gap, but slightly outside the B gap. It's still going vertical up the field because they've taken themselves out of the play. So we like to use a term called dent. All right, we like to hit it thick. So off that down block, we are certainly not going to run up the field. That is, by no means is that what I'm saying. We will squeeze that down block, but when we get that fullback or guard, whatever that kick-out block is going to be, we are going to try and take that thick through the midline, and we're going to try and dent that thing backwards while still allowing them to maybe disengage and make a play. So we don't want the ball going vertically up the field. We don't want our guys going up the field. That's not what we want. We want to squeeze the down block, but instead of wrong arming, we want to hit that thick through the midline and give that kid a chance to dent it back but still make a play. All right, so if you have athletic ends that you think are really good players and you still don't want to give up vertical running lanes, I think a good way to try and do that is by trying to kind of dent those gap schemes and try and play them real thick to where you're taking air off the down block and you're trying to, you know, not have vertical running lanes, but you're trying to get that defensive end to allow himself to be a player. Like I said, one of the young kids we have this year, we really like how he plays, and I want him to be able to make some plays. So instead of telling him wrong arm, I'm going to tell him that he's going to dent those plays. All right, and it's just a matter of how you teach it. I'm still going to tell him to squeeze the down block. He will not run up the field if we coach it and teach it correctly and he plays it correctly. So he will still squeeze a down block, but he doesn't have to give himself up to wrong arm, spill the ball. He's going to try and dent it thick. And if he does it right, the ball should still bounce to spill, but he can also disengage and make a play. All right, so sometimes if you have good athletic defensive ends and good defensive line coaches and you can get that theory taught, you can get that kid to squeeze, dent hard, and not necessarily turn to wrong arm and take himself out of the play. Okay? Spot drop coverages. This is something I did in the offseason, all right, in our 7-on-7 work, and then in one of the 7-on-7 tournaments that we went to, we played some spot drop coverages, all right? Most of you that have been watching the videos that I've done for the last 5 years, you know that we are a pattern read, pattern match team. All right, we play a lot of palms or 2-read coverage. Our trips adjustments are a lot of pattern read. So we are certainly a pattern read, pattern match team. In the offseason, I wanted to experiment and see if we spot dropped, if it would allow some of our kids maybe to think less and play a little bit faster and a little bit smoother in transition because they didn't have as much to think about. Now, in saying that, we were not you know, we played some cover 3 stuff and we didn't play Rip Liz match cover 3. We played country cover 3 with spot drops, curl flat, hook curl. And in saying that, if you're going to spot drop, eventually you are going to relate to routes that are in your area. You're not going to drop and cover you know, blades of grass. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, though, is you're going to go to your drop, all right, whether it's a hook to curl or a curl to flat, you're going to drop to a specific landmark first, and then you're going to react to routes that are around you. When we first taught it, all right, we dropped guys to a spot and we pulled the chain off the quarterback. So they all dropped to their landmark and squared up. When the quarterback set his feet, we set our feet. And when the quarterback started to look, we melted or pulled the string the way he was looking, and when his front hand came off, we broke. All right, and we were experimenting with how that would work, how it would work with our players. And here's what we found out in kind of collecting some numbers and statistically doing some data. When we played our pattern match, pattern read coverages correctly, all right, when we played them correctly and we matched the routes and the dispersion and displacement of the routes, all right, as they came out, again, you know, so the new number 1, the new number 2, matching the verticals, 2 to the flat, all right, pushing the coverage when the back went out. All those different things that happen when, all right, those routes disperse post-snap, okay? When we matched those correctly and we played the coverage right, there were a lot tighter throwing windows and there were less complete passes, okay? When we went to spot drop coverages, now mind you, we've been teaching pattern read, pattern match to some of our 9th grade kids for 3 years now. When we went to spot drop cover 3, we had only been doing it for about 2 weeks, okay? And what we found was, in a 7-on-7 scenario when there's no pass rush and the quarterback has all open throwing lanes and they can always get 5 in the route, we gave up more completions when we spot dropped. The throwing windows were nowhere near as tight. But the major thing we found was we busted way less when we spot dropped, and we kept the ball in front of us, and we were able to rally and tag off or get what we assumed would be getting guys on the ground without a lot of major busts down the field. And in our pattern read, pattern match stuff, sometimes when we don't match the coverages right, or we get bad, all right, you know, bad eye discipline and we don't read the right thing, or when maybe we don't communicate with what we think is vertical, under, out, or, you know, if we're reading off a number 2 and the corner thinks he went out and he played him and the safety didn't get to 1 in time and we gave up the vertical hole shot to 1, or we had more busts in our pattern read, pattern match coverage than we did in our spot drop, but we gave up more completions when we spot drop. So the idea there, statistically, looking at that data, would be to say, okay, if we had a pass rush and some throwing traffic, and maybe the other team not being able to constantly get 5 into the route, and the quarterback not being able to sit so comfortably and throw the football unimpeded, you know, would the number of completions that we gave up in spot drop coverage, if that dropped significantly to where we felt good that we weren't going to give up as many busts, could we play the spot drop coverages so that we would keep the ball in front of us? We wouldn't have the tighter throwing windows that we would get when we played pattern match correctly, all right? But with the added pass rush traffic and things that are going on in the game, maybe there wouldn't be the same number of completions as there are in a 7-on-7, okay? So, you know, that research is not finished yet because we haven't done it in a game yet, all right? So we haven't spot dropped in a game to say what it would look like, but that was the theory. The theory behind it was if we took the 7-on-7 results and tried to guesstimate what would happen in a game, could we get the number of completions down from the 7-on-7 in our spot drop stuff to where we felt comfortable doing it? Because our kids picked up the spot drop stuff a lot easier than they picked up the pattern match stuff, because it is easier in my opinion. And we were able to play it a lot quicker at a higher rate than we were our pattern read, pattern match. Our pattern read, pattern match is still a work in progress every day, and we're 3 years into it with some of our young kids. So we are not completely away from pattern read, pattern match. We still do it. It's how we start our base defense. It's how we build our coverage toolbox. All right, but we will play some spot drop coverages throughout the year and give our kids the ability to play it, because they've showed us that they understand it and they know where to get to and they can do it with a lot of confidence. Now we just have to get a little bit better at doing it. So the key now is, can we play both pattern read, pattern match, and spot drop stuff, and can they relate to all of it and understand it? If they can't, then we'll just go one way or the other. But if they can, we have seen that it gives us a little bit safer coverage that doesn't bust as much. Not as tight throwing windows, not as tight coverage, but safer with less busts. Okay, so that's an experiment that we did in the off-season. I always like to try and do experiments like that in the off-season or in spring when you don't have the results as tied into worrying about, you know, wins and losses in districts and playoffs and things like that, because in the spring that's a great time to try some things. So we kept my own stats on it and how many completions we gave up and the types of completions we gave up and when we played it right and when we didn't, and gave us a pretty good idea of what our kids can understand and what they do better. And you know, I was actually quite happy with the way we spot dropped our cover 3 stuff. And Didn't know if I wanted to carry it or if we can do it, and I still don't know if we're going to carry it or do it, but I was quite pleased with the results that we had with our spot drop stuff, and I thought our kids picked it up really well in a very quick, short, limited matter, you know, of reps and time, as opposed to how much time we've been spending on our pattern match stuff. All right, man free coverages, okay? When you get into man and man free coverages, if you have the athletes or the skill players to do it and you feel confident doing it, all right, way less adjustments, way less, you know, checks and things to formations. It's kind of like in its most simplest form, dude on dude. You got a guy, you got to play him. And if you have those types of players, it allows kids to play a little bit freer, and it allows them to play without a lot of thinking as far as the scheme is concerned. The thinking is now all in the physical execution of playing man coverage, whether it be press, catch, off. The thinking now becomes all the techniques that you need to play good man coverage and the execution of man coverage. The thinking is not now reading a certain receiver. What do I do if he's out? What do I do if he's up? What do I do if he's in? What does this coverage go to if they come out in trips? What does this coverage go to if they come out in pro, two-back? What does this coverage go to if they come out in twins open? What does this coverage do if they motion? The thinking is not in that part because you're playing man defense. So your skill players are playing man, and obviously 7-on-7, a lot easier to look at it and say, hey, it's man free, or, you know, we play a lot of low hole, high hole robber stuff, so it's man with a low hole robber and a high hole robber. But what I found for our kids is it's a lot easy, it's less thinking for them, and it's a lot easier to do when they just say, hey, I've got number 2 on my side. If he's not on my side and it's trips, I've got to go over and play number 3. It was a lot easier for our kids to do. That, you know, with that thought in mind, though, you also have to understand now your run fits and a lot of other things get compromised, because now guys that are playing man, if they get ran off vertically or a guy goes to the flat or something like that, they're completely removed from the run game. So now your run fits and the amount of helmets you can get to the box, and a lot of those things get kind of, they change and they get a little bit dicey at times. So, you know, so obviously there is a drawback to playing a lot of man coverages. But as far as getting guys freed up to play faster and to play with a little bit more mental freedom and less clutter upstairs, man coverage is an easy way to do that. All right, formationally, there aren't a lot of adjustments. Motion-wise, there's not a lot of adjustments. All right, you're either going to rock and roll and take the free player. If you're playing 0, you're probably going to run with it. You might trade it off, all right, depending on the type of motion you're getting. If you're playing man free, you might take the free player and rock him down and take the man player and put him back free when you get flat motion across from receivers. So there can be, you know, a little bit of adjustment, but there's no coverage adjustments. It's going to be man or man free. That's what it's going to be. It's just going to be a matter of who's playing who, and are you bumping it, trading it off with somebody, or are you playing? All right. The only time you get into a little bit more thinking is when you try to in and out IO coverages, when you try to take 2 guys versus tight splits, stacked, or other things, and you try to play routes inside and outside, or first up and in, first up and out. That takes a little more thinking. All right. But in general, base splits, base scenarios, man free, it's less thinking. All right, it's a little bit more risky. Your run fits aren't as, you know, as solid because you don't have as many eyes or as many zone eyes as you would in maybe standard 8-man front stuff. You know, quarterback runs become a little bit of an issue if they're motioning backs out and you got backers running with that. You know, quarterback runs become a little bit of an issue when you're, especially in 0 coverage, because most of the times in 0 you don't have the quarterback played, so that if you're not gap sound with, you know, the 6 gaps or whatever it may be up front versus spread team, if you're not gap sound and your guys each don't win in their gap and you don't build that flat wall across the line and the quarterback gets out, man coverage, that's a little bit of an issue. So I'm not saying it comes without issues. Obviously, everything you do has its pluses, minuses, and it has its issues. But as far as freeing a kid up to play a little bit cleaner and a little bit faster, if you have the talent to do so, man coverage is a way to do that because it's less thinking schematically. All right, and that's really what a lot of these ideas are about, is getting kids to think a little bit less about the schematics of what they're doing and allowing them to kind of free up to play technique execution a little bit better. Okay, RPOs. Okay, if you have in your run game, if you're a spread team like we are, and formationally we don't use a tight end, and we use a lot of slot sets and a lot of receiver sets, and a lot of times in your perimeter runs or your inside runs, you're asking slot players to kind of dig out apex Sam linebackers or down safeties, whatever they may be. And you know what the RPO world has allowed us to do is it's allowed us to kind of take a guy that maybe we're having trouble blocking with a receiver, and we're replacing him with a route, and now if he fits the run, we're going to throw a route to a receiver who is more inclined to run a route and catch a pass than he is to maybe dig out a Sam linebacker, because sometimes our slot receivers are smaller, shiftier kids that we like to get the ball into their hands in open space, but they don't win a battle against the Sam linebacker. And then we play with NFHS rules. We cannot cut the perimeter, all right, like they can in college or some states around the country. We can't cut, so we can't cut that Sam linebacker. So if we're running any perimeter runs and we got to get that apex guy blocked, or if we're running any inside runs and we're trying to cut that guy off from being a fold extra hat in the box, sometimes that's tough with the skill set of the players that we have in there. So what the RPOs have allowed us to do is they've allowed us to take the skill set of a slot receiver and let him be a receiver, all right, and now read off the guy and essentially block the run fitter by running a route behind him. All right, and that's really why we use RPOs. We use RPOs to keep extra guys out of the box. They're not all these fancy ways that are every time you run it, the defense can't stop it. That's not why we use it. If we're getting a good team that plays a lot of 8-man front zone coverages to where they have 8-man fronts, 6 in the box, 2 overhang players, all right, your traditional 8-man front, and all those guys are reading through the tackle box and they have zone eyes and zone integrity, so they're run players first and they're not playing man-to-man out on the perimeter. If we got to get those guys blocked, sometimes within the skill set of your players, it's easier to block them by reading them. Okay, so, you know, RPOs for us haven't become this fancy way to say that the defense can't stop it, and every time you run that certain RPO, it's an automatic first down or touchdown. That has nothing to do with it. What it is for us is we use RPO simply as a way to control a 7th or 8th defender in the box and allow our receivers to run routes and do things that they're going to be better at. Our receivers have to block at some point in time. And I think all receivers have to block at some point in time, so it's not a skill that you're trying to get rid of. What you're saying is, look, typically most receivers catch passes better than they block. All right, so why not allow your receiver in the running game to have a chance to catch passes, because he'll be better and your offense will be better if he can't dig out that kid. We have kids that are tough enough to do it. We have kids that aren't afraid of the contact involved. But our 165-pound slot against an 190-pound Sam linebacker, we just physically don't win that battle. So if we want to run power inside, all right, and if we want to run an A-gap power play and keep it inside, and they have an apex player that we can't block, all right, and he's folding in and making some plays, okay, and if we're running the power play effectively, we should still gain yards. I'm not talking about he's making plays in the backfield, but he's an extra helmet that we cannot get blocked in the scheme, either because of his alignment and the slot can't get there, or when the slot does get there, we just can't physically block him, okay? Or on a perimeter run, all right? If you're running outside zone or wide zone that has a chance to get to the perimeter, or you're running some type of, we run power, read, toss, right? So we run power up front, we read the end, we either toss it or run power. If we get that ball kicked and the ball's on the perimeter, we have to block that overhang, okay? So, you know, your receivers have to block. You're not taking that skill completely out of it, but you're giving them a skill that they're better at and trying to use that within your system to say, look, kid's a better receiver than he is a blocker. I don't want to take him out of the game, so let's maybe use some things to where he doesn't have to block that kid. He can block him by running a route. All right, so that's why we use RPOs, and we feel like it gives our receivers a little bit cleaner way to play, and it frees them up to be better players. If he's a great slot receiver with the ball in space, let's give him a chance to get the ball in space and not rely on him on all of our rundowns to have to dig out a Sam or get a Sam seal down inside, or when we run some of our buck sweep stuff, crack a Mike linebacker. You know, that's not a skill set that he's good at. He's going to have to do it if he wants to play, and if he wants to start, that kid's got to be able to do it. But if it's not his better skill set, why make him do that all the time when you can wrinkle in some things to alleviate that problem, which will allow that kid to play freer to his skill set, better to his skill set, faster using his skill set. Okay, so it doesn't remove all the blocking from it. It just makes him play a little bit better within his means and his capability. Okay, and then gap schemes. All right, I love running zone. I would love to be a wide zone team. I think wide zone is probably one of the best plays in football. Obviously, we love inside zone. It takes a lot of work. Linemen have to understand how to see fronts and understand post-snap where we're going and how to get our feet in the ground properly and how to get that second step in the ground properly and how it's going to change based on the stunts and the movement and things that we get. And, you know, it's just something that takes a lot of work, and you got to have a good offensive line coach and kids that understand how a scheme can change, you know, so progressively from snap to snap, move to move. All right, and what I found for us is gap schemes, whether it be straight down schemes or down kick, you know, like power counter, things like that. Gap schemes allow the offensive lineman, in my opinion now, this is my opinion, it's strictly my opinion, our kids play a little bit more confident and a little bit more aggressive in a gap scheme than they do when we run inside zone. Okay? Why that is, I can't necessarily, I can give my, you know, again, my opinion is sometimes with all the footwork of inside zone and tail protectors and overtake guys and all the, I think sometimes they get caught up in too much terminology and they don't play aggressive enough. Obviously, inside zone is an aggressive play. You see it in the NFL, you see it in college football. It is a nasty, physical, hang-your-hat run. Wide zone is a nasty, physical, hang-your-hat run. Okay? And to me, there's still probably, you know, 1 and 1A in your run game. If you can be an inside zone team and a wide zone team, you probably don't have to carry anything else. You don't even need anything else in your game. But for me and for our kids, we play a little bit faster and a little bit more physical when it's gap schemes. So when we run our read scheme off of a veer blocking scheme, we gap everything. All right? We don't try to overtake. We gap everything, and we try to get double teams, and we try to vertically move guys to a linebacker. Okay? If we have a 3 technique, and we're running veer right at that 3 technique, okay, our back is going to be in the front side A gap. And we're going to try and get our back to understand where the linebacker fits to set the leverage up of the blocks of the lineman, because when we double that 3 and go to backer, our tackle is not going to try and scoop the 3 so that we get leverage on the 3, all right, for the cutback like on a zone play. We're going to hit that front side A gap in our veer play. It's not split back under center inside veer where we're outside leg of the guard. It's veer gap blocking with almost a midline track by the back. So it's a little bit of a combination of both plays. But what it does is it allows our linemen to be physical and say, look, it's a gap scheme, guys. We're going 1 gap down. Everybody get off the ball and move people. And then our offensive line coach has to talk about where the doubles are going to occur, which back are we working to. There's more to it than just saying, hey, run this play and it's a be-all, end-all. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when we gap it down and we keep it to veer, power, counter, gap down, kick, wrap, all schemes that involve gap down theories, our offensive linemen seem to play a little bit better and a little bit more physical. Again, it frees them up a little bit for whatever the reason is. Sometimes as a coach, what you got to understand is you don't need to know what the reason is if you just see with your own eyes which way they play better. If I watch our kids block inside zone and I watch our kids block veer, and we play more physical at the point of attack on the veer scheme, I really don't need to explain why. I have my own theories why, but I really don't necessarily need to explain why or figure out why. If we play more physical and we play a little bit faster and simpler in that scheme, then that's the scheme that we need to be using. Okay? Now, I still think inside zone, again, is one of the best schemes, if not the best run scheme in football, tagged with wide zone. I think it's an awesome combination. But I don't use them because my kids block gap schemes better. So for me, gap schemes free my linemen up a little bit better. All right? And again, I think the most important point is, all right, don't worry about why. Don't try and explain why. Okay? If your kids do something better, then go ahead and let them do what they do better. You can try and figure it out on your own, but you don't have to explain it. If you feel like your kids are better in gap schemes like I do, then run gap schemes. All right? I'm telling you from my team and my experience in 20 years of doing this, we block, the kids that I've had in 20 years block gap veer schemes better than they block inside zone schemes. So we just take our read plays and we make them veer blocking schemes, not zone schemes. All right? So again, it's a matter of what gets kids to think less, play faster. All right, again, that's always the goal. But at the same time, we don't want to be so simple and so mundane that you know, the play fast moniker is a great theory and it's a great motto. But at the same time, you can't play so simple and mundane that the other team has no adjustments to make and you have no answers. You have to have answers and things built in. So what you're trying to do is build a system that allows kids to be a little bit clearer up top, so that they can play a little bit faster, all right, all the way through. And they can play faster with their feet and their hands and the physicality of what they're doing because there's less going on up here. we still need kids to think, all right? Our systems are not, you know, so boring, mundane, and simple that our kids can go out there and not, we have to think. Our linemen have to know how to smart split. They got to know where the 5 technique is. If we're reading a 5 technique, when do we want them closer? When do we want them wider? They have to understand the schemes that we're using. So, you know, I'm not saying it's quote-unquote idiot-proof or that simple, but we're always trying to find a way, and I'm always trying to find a way for my coaches and my players to make it a little bit easier for them to play better and play faster. All right, and at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So for me in the offseason and in the last year or so, I've been trying to find ways to free some of my players up. I have a pretty good feel now for who my players are. I've been coaching them for 3 years. It's third year in the program. A lot of the kids that were here since they were in 9th grade, they're now 11th graders. They've been with us the whole time. It's now time to figure out what we do and how we do it best. And these are just some ideas, some things that we've done in the past, okay? Again, I am not all of these 6 things. We do other things, all right? But these are some things that we will allow some of our players, and I have allowed some of our players in the past, and I've made my coordinators, all right, when I had, like my defensive coordinator when we were at Baker, I made him understand that to that side, that 5 technique was going to have a 2-way go now, and we're going to fix it with the 1 technique, okay? So I went ahead and kind of told my coordinators, I said, look, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we're going to do it, and then we had to work on it, all right? And it was just one of those things that we felt like was better for our kids. So at the end of the day, for you as a coach and your coaching staff and your players, what's better for you, what's best for you? I am looking at a couple of these different things. You will see in our season this year, some of these things incorporate into what we do. All of them incorporated in at one point or another. We're not going to be all of one, all right? So, you know, we're not going to be all spot drop. We're not going to be all man, all right? We will be pattern match. We will be pattern read. We will have some spot drop, and we will play some man. All right, but what I've been able to do is figure out what our kids do better, and now when I put together what I want to run for us in a season to be successful, I have a little bit better idea of what our kids can do better, and that, to me, is what it's all about. Figure out what your kids can do better, figure out the best way for your coaches to give it to them. All right, I hope this helps you guys. All right, a lot of it's ideas you're probably already using and things you've gone through in the past, but preseason, leading up into the season, these are some good things to think about and see if it can help you, help some of your kids maybe think a little bit less, play a little bit harder, play a little bit faster. All right, guys, as always, you don't play well until you play fast. I'll catch you guys next time.